Jewish priests and 5 red heifers. All these elements are in place for what some Jews and Gentiles believe is the key to building the third Jewish temple.
In Israel's history, 7th of October 2023 was such a terrible day that no one can forget. Nor will Israel let anyone forget that day. That day fed to the upcoming dark days of the Holocaust. Israel suffered a terrible blow when Hamas launched a terrific attack that destroyed entire villages. And humanity shattered in a few minutes. The attack cost the lives of many people. Numerous innocent men, women, and children were abducted, and at least 400 Jewish lives were lost. When the whole world was in shock and amidst all of this sadness, there was little known about what happened before that awful day. Most of us came to our senses when Israel was attacked. Therefore, only a few know about what happened the day before. The knowledge will shock you to a great extent. Recently, something unusual came to light that points to the events of October 7th as a reaction to tensions that were building around the Temple Mount. The military spokesman for the Hamas al-Qassam brigades, Abu Ubaida, spoke to the country on television barely 100 days after the first Hamas attack on Israel. During his speech, Abu Ubaida discussed the work that Hamas has been doing and restated the goal of their activities. He indicated that the incident was a defense of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Temple Mount, rather than an act of aggression, which sounds vague in itself, because attacking a place with missiles, killing people in that country, targeting men, and taking people hostages. How come it is not an act of aggression? The question is, how does Abu Ubaida then define violence and aggression? Coming back to the root cause of this war, for Palestinians as much as Israelis, the Temple Mount is extremely important. The site is considered sacred by both Muslims and Jews, as it houses the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest place in Islam, and is the location of the ancient temple. Tensions have been heightened between the two sides by the decades-long struggle over ownership of the Temple Mount. Regarding the attack as an appropriate reaction to perceived threats to their religious and cultural heritage, Hamas saw itself as a defender of Palestinian interests. Therefore, it wouldn't be incorrect to say that to gain ownership of Temple Mount, Hamas took a step in result to while many people lost everything they possessed along with their loved ones. However, the real cost of every war and attack is the loss of innocent lives and the continuation of suffering for all sides, hidden beneath the expression of defense and revenge. The October 7th tragedy serves as an alarming reminder of the human cost of war and the utmost necessity of communication and peacemaking to create the conditions for a peaceful future. To protect a religious place, Hamas attacked Israel. Since then, the common people who might not even know about the real cause behind this attack have been suffering for days. However, in such dark days, let us tell you a little about something you would have never heard of before. Some people in the Jewish community made preparations to carry out a major rite in September 2022, which includes the sacrifice of a flawless red heifer. These unique, spotless animals were shipped to Israel from Texas. Plans are currently in motion for this holy ceremony. Sounds strange, right? But this ceremony has great symbolic significance. The red heifer sacrifice is a unique occasion. Its completion is said to have the potential to change the Temple Mount's current position, which is significant to Christians, Muslims, and Jews alike. Now, this is something you would have never heard of before, but people believe in this ritual, and it might take place soon. A special altar has been built to suit this ritual, and the Temple Institute is working hard to get everything ready for the event, which is scheduled to happen before the approaching Passover. However, what's the big deal? What is the significance of this sacrifice? Jewish custom holds that the offering of a red heifer as a sacrifice may set off a sequence of events that may lead to the long-awaited building of the Third Temple in Jerusalem. We know that the Third Temple in Jerusalem has something to do with religion in coming times, and with Antichrist as well. We need to consult the Old Testament, more especially the Book of Numbers, chapter 19, to learn more about this ritual and its results. This is where we find the old regulation about the red heifer rite that the Lord gave to Moses and Aaron. This ritual, rich in religious meaning and tradition, is essential to Jewish faith and prophecy. It is necessary to comprehend the historical and theological background of the red heifer sacrifice to fully appreciate its significance. This ceremony, which has deep roots in Jewish tradition, will have a significant impact on Jerusalem's and the Temple Mount's destiny. But what is exactly red heifer? How is it important for other religions as well? Let's learn more about this prophecy and why people believe in it. The red heifer prophecy is a big deal for people from different religions all around the globe. It's one of those rare prophecies that matter to all three of the big religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Why is it such a big deal? Well, think about it. 25% of the world follows Islam, 31.6% are Christians, and 2% are Jewish. That's a lot of people. The red heifer is supposed to kick off some major events. According to the belief, when this special cow is sacrificed, it's like pressing the start button on the end times. It's a crucial step before Christ's second coming. But the thing is, each religion sees it differently. This whole thing goes back to the ancient temple in Jerusalem, which was first built by King Solomon. The first temple in Jerusalem was destroyed by the Babylonians some time ago, in 586 BC. Then under Herod's command, a second one, known as the Second Temple, appears. The Romans destroyed that temple in 70 AD, yet it had existed during the time of Jesus. There hasn't been a new temple in Jerusalem since that time. Because they believe it would usher in the Messiah, Jews have been longing to construct a third temple. The scriptures mention the rebuilding of this third temple. The problem is that the Jews took nearly 2 millennia to return after the Romans drove them from Jerusalem. However, Muslims moved in during this time and built a mosque and shrine on the site of the former temple. Most people concur that this is the location of the first Jewish temples. Muslims hold that from there, their prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven and imprinted his imprint on a rock that is currently covered by the Dome of the Rock. The location of the Dome of the Rock is extremely significant to Muslims, ranking as their third most sacred location worldwide. Conversely, Jews are returning in droves to Israel and Jerusalem, considering it to be their most sacred location on earth. They consider it to be their holy country, which Abraham first promised to them. They had come back to this area after Moses had led them out of Egypt. They built the tabernacle while they were traveling through the wilderness. They were given a set of regulations known as the Law of Moses, which comprises an astounding 613 commandments recorded in the Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, since they were not doing as they were supposed to. Now it's time to discuss this red heifer issue. Rabbis refer to it as the para aduma. As per their customs, before engaging in any temple devotion, they must do this process as a means of purifying themselves. When people refer to red, they don't imply cherry red. The hue is closer to brownish red. However, the challenge here is that it's not simple to find the perfect cow. It must be very red, at least 3 years old, and immaculate, no flaws allowed. Oh, and unless you are using it only to protect the cow, you are not allowed to do anything with it either, not even tossing a cloth over it or supporting yourself. Even if it's merely for show, adding a yoke to the cow is not acceptable as it disqualifies the poor animal. Furthermore, the heifer will be disqualified if it is pregnant or has been around men. It is very difficult to find a qualified red heifer because of these criteria. Rather than being directly taken from the Torah or the books of Moses, the majority of these laws are derived from the Mishnah, the Jewish oral tradition. It gets harder as the heifer gets older. Its chances are ruined when it starts to develop different colored hairs at the age of 4 or 5. These cows are closely monitored by rabbis, who are constantly searching for anything that may disqualify them. The ceremony can only be carried out for a little time, and it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack when looking for a heifer that meets all the requirements. Just to show you how rare this is, in the roughly 3,300 years since Moses, this ritual has only been done 9 times. Moses himself oversaw the performance of this ceremony on its first occasion. Yes, you heard that right. However, that occurred more than 2,000 years ago. That is, long before Jesus began his earthly ministry. According to Jewish tradition, the construction of the Third Temple, a significant step towards the arrival of the Messiah, will begin on the 10th performance of this ceremony. According to several ancient legends, the Messiah himself would make the offering. Christians have their sights set on the Jerusalem temple. They believe that before Jesus makes his second appearance, it must be rebuilt. The majority think that Jews will rebuild, with the red heifer sacrifice being an essential first step. One organization, the Temple Institute, is dedicated to preparing for the construction of the Third Temple. They have spent decades searching for red heifers that satisfy all the requirements outlined in the Book of Numbers and oral tradition. In 1997, 2002, and 2018, they believed they had identified several candidates. However, each time an issue arose, disqualifying the cows. What everyone's talking about now is an event that occurred in September 2022. With the help of an American farmer and evangelical Christian named Byron Stinson, 5 red heifers were brought over from the United States. He collaborated with Rabbi Yekutiel Menachem Mamo of the Jerusalem-based Temple Institute to transport these unique cows to Israel. After that, they brought the cows to a farm for breeding. Regretfully, 1 heifer out of the 5 was eliminated since it did not pass muster. Still, the other 4 are under constant observation. Abu Obeida, the military spokesman for Hamas, claimed they targeted these red heifers to disrupt the Jewish ritual. The attack resulted in a tragic loss of lives, with 695 people killed, including 36 children. The red heifer sacrifice is supposed to be carried out on the Mount of Olives, east of the future location of the temple. For this reason, Rabbi Yekutiel Menachem Mamo bought land there 12 years ago. It has a view of the Temple Mount. It is noteworthy that Rabbi Mamo was also involved in helping Byron Stinson transport the necessary red heifers to Israel. The time is almost here for the red heifers to be utilized in the ceremony. This is their 3rd year. The event is much anticipated, and many hope it takes place before the heifers grow too old to be eligible. The Temple Institute has stated that it hopes to carry out the ceremony shortly. Reportedly, a massive altar has already been constructed for the event. According to those participating in the initiative, the ceremony must take place facing the location of the former temple on the Mount of Olives. The ideal location is just east of the Temple Mount on the land that was acquired 12 years ago. Recently, Rabbi Mamo made a public statement, hinting that the cows are nearing their 3rd year. There's even talk that the Temple Institute aims to conduct the sacrifice before Passover 2024. Exciting times are ahead as people watch and wait for this historic event. For the Jewish community, Passover is on April 22nd this year. Some people speculate that the sacrifice might have taken place even earlier, possibly on March 29th, which is recognized as the Red Heifer Sabbath. However, the Temple Institute stresses that they are awaiting a sign from God to determine whether the sacrifice is appropriate. Most people believe that the original temples were located on the Temple Mount, where the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque are located. Muslims own the Temple Mount and have built their sacred structures there, but Jews feel they have a right to use it for their temple. Christians are keeping a careful eye on these developments because they think they must happen before Jesus returns. Some suggest sharing the land, as there's enough space for both, but neither group is willing to budge. Inside Jerusalem's walls, there are ethnic centers for Jews, Muslims, and various Christian denominations, a testament to the city's rich religious history. Several neighborhoods in Jerusalem are assigned to distinct ethnic groups: the Muslim, Armenian, Jewish, and Christian neighborhoods, among others. These zones are designed to promote intergroup coexistence in the city. To enter some places, one must go via security checkpoints manned by military guards. The preparation and advocacy for the construction of the Third Temple has been going on for decades among these groups. For the future sanctuary, they have even manufactured furnishings, utensils, and priestly vestments. These groups frequently attempt against the law to enter the Temple Mount to worship on Jewish holidays. Israeli security personnel halt them time and time again. However, more and more Jews are pushing for the right to pray on the Temple Mount, going against the agreement made in the early 1967s regarding the site. Palestinian Muslims have reacted with protests and sometimes violence, with the potential for a new uprising looming. So, in short, there is a growing desire among Jews to start the process of rebuilding the temple. Jews want to rebuild the temple to pave the way for the Messiah, while Muslims see this as a desecration of their third most sacred site. Jews feel that Muslims have been disrespecting their site for centuries. They believe that rebuilding the temple is essential for the Messiah's arrival. Similarly, Christians think the temple must be rebuilt before Jesus returns. Muslims, however, are determined to protect the site at any cost. Both Jews and Christians believe in the prophecy of the coming Messiah. According to the Bible, after the temple is rebuilt in Jerusalem, it will face a siege known as Armageddon. But just when all seems lost, Jesus descends and steps foot on the Mount of Olives, causing a great earthquake that saves the Jews from the invading army. It's then that the Jews will recognize Jesus as their Messiah, as described in Zechariah 13:6. Many Christians also believe in the prophecy of the red heifer, as they see it as a prerequisite for the temple's rebuilding and the second coming of Jesus. However, they sometimes forget that Jesus fulfilled the law of Moses during his ministry, which would include the red heifer sacrifice. Traditionally, it's believed that Jesus himself would offer the 10th red heifer sacrifice, with the 9th being before his ministry began. The debate about building the Jewish temple is now taken seriously by Israeli society and is no longer limited to the purview of eccentrics or fringe groups. One of the major forces behind this change is Yehuda Glick, who has been a dedicated advocate for the fulfillment of this long-held dream. Not even one CET, Committee for the Encouragement of Temple Mount Activism, member dared to step foot on the Temple Mount a mere 10 years ago. However, things have radically changed in recent times. The Organization for the Renewal of the Temple, OFET, has 20 devoted members today who are passionate about climbing the Temple Mount, praying there, and actively participating in the struggle for its redemption. Their mission is to re-establish the Temple Mount as the center of Jewish aspirations. The red heifer's sacrifice on the Mount of Olives is seen by them as the next stage in the process of redemption. It is thought that by performing this symbolic deed, Jewish worshippers will be able to enter the Temple Mount and begin building the temple. The Temple Institute is working non-stop to be ready for this important occasion. The priests who will serve in the future temple are being assiduously trained by them. These priests are already sharpening their abilities for the key sacrifice that could take place this coming Passover by performing sacrificial rites on an annual basis. These people's commitment and passion represent a significant change in attitudes and views. The things that were thought to be radical ideas or far-off dreams are now becoming true, and plans are in place for what may prove to be a turning point in the history of how old predictions will come to pass. The Temple Institute has worked with architects to create these designs and a building that would act as a global hub for religious unity. The goal is to develop a world religion that may unite people in Jerusalem and promote world peace and redemption. However, the geopolitical environment of today presents a different image. Coalitions opposing Israel are formed in response to the growing resistance to it. The UN has often been critical, especially when it comes to operations in Gaza. Even Russia, which has always backed Israel, has begun to express disapproval. For those who still see the Third Temple's importance, the idea of constructing it endures despite these obstacles. Even though there may be many challenges ahead, many people are still motivated and full of optimism by the vision of a temple that represents harmony and peace. Some may be wondering if the end of the world, often known as Armageddon, is drawing near as Israel helps Ukraine defend itself against Russia. It's true that the geopolitical environment is unstable and that tensions are high. But there is optimism even in the middle of these unknowns. The idea that the planet would truly be saved after this turbulent voyage continues. Because it reminds us that there is light at the end of the tunnel, hope helps us get through the difficulties we encounter. Thank you for staying with us till the end of the video. If you enjoyed watching the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let's work together to create a brighter future for everyone while navigating these unpredictable times with hope, faith, and a strong commitment.